Thank you all for joining. We are right at 2 o'clock. So I want to honor your time and make sure we stay within our hour. So we will get started. Um, you could ask questions at any time. There are only about 22 of us, so that's okay. Um, and Adriana, you're going to help me monitor the chat, right?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, so just briefly, quickly, a little bit about myself. I have been in government procurement for over 35 years. I started out as a high school student. I had a summer job in Ohio for the Defense Contract Audit Agency. Then when I went to college, I had a internship throughout my college college is a career, isn't it? Throughout my college experience, auditing and reviewing healthcare contracts. That time it was Champus, now it's called TRICARE. So if you are a veteran or ever served in the military or even supported as a family member, thank you for your service. Appreciate that. After that, I was a regional contract administrator for TRICARE for a 5-state region there in the Midwest with about 500,000 beneficiaries and about $4 billion government contract. I then spent some time assisting IT companies with their GSA schedules and small business certification issues. And I moved on down to Atlanta, where I currently am. And I spent some time here working with CDC for grant management and disbursement audits, as well as some local government and state government work there with DeKalb County. But I have been also a government buyer practitioner. And then recently with my business, it's about over 20 years old now, I help government contractors navigate the government space. I also help them with teaming and GSA schedules. I also, which I'm enjoy greatly, is I teach the government contracting officers and pricing and program managers how to buy, because government contracting is what I to tell people the fun part is shopping for the government. Whatever the federal government needs, whether it's enabling and assisting the warfighter or national security, or providing public services that we need related to healthcare or parks or consumer product safety, that is what this is about. So this is going to focus on how we can use AI strategies to be more strategic, not just with entrepreneurship, but with government. These are some things that we do, and I just briefly explained that to you, but marketing consulting, teaching government buyers how they are supposed to buy in accordance with the government regulations. And I've been fortunate enough to go to different embassies around the world where I've been conducting training for that as well. So with the Department of State, I've had the pleasure of speaking in Abu Dhabi, in Brasilia, in Africa. So you can go places with the federal government. These are the learning objectives for today. We are going to, at the end, I'm saving the AI, strategies, where we'll do some real demos of some of the things that I'm speaking of today. But I want to make sure that you understand how the government buys so that you're correctly aligned in terms of what you sell and properly identifying what that is in the government marketplace, as well as the commercial sector. Because if you don't walk the walk and talk the talk, it's going to be hard to convince someone that you're knowledgeable enough to buy from you. We're going to discuss the importance of market research, identifying opportunities, and how you create pricing, and a little background on GSA schedules. So just to review, I do this with every discussion. Remember the best practices for AI prompting. And we know prompting is about asking instructions. Really, that's what we're doing. We're giving the system instructions on the type of data and the task that we need to complete. So we need to be specific in detail, right? Because this is not a human. So it does need some help understanding, what is it do you want me to do? Make sure that we're providing context. If there's some background information or other factors that need to be considered to generate the data, we're identifying the type of format we want. Do we want an outline? Do we want bullet formats? Do we want a graph or presentation? And then, as we know with the TADA method, with Alicia and AI and Vision, is we are then taking that data and we're digging deeper to make sure that we have the information that we need. A benefit with AI that we see in the government space and just general use period is that the more you use it, and when you train AI based upon your capabilities and your skills and so forth, it becomes smarter. That generative pre-trained transformer, that's what GPT stands for. It's generating data and it's learning, it's pre-training and transforming that into more and more data and insight for you. So the more information it gathers, the better your output is going to be. And that's the reason we need to dig. Also, remember that this is a starting point. We all know that we shouldn't just take the first draft from AI and use it. We want to make sure that we are fact finding as well as giving it more information to build off of. What I also remind people of is the acronym. I'm going to say it a different way than it sounds. PROP, which is CRAAP. And what do you think that stands for? Because whenever we have data, even when we understand the source, we still want to verify that it is reliable, right? So what does that mean? Current is the data current, right? This is how we check if it's credible, right? Is it relevant to what you're using it for, what you need it for? Was it created by someone of authority and certain knowledge, right? Is it accurate? Meaning we're going to verify how accurate it is off of some other data. And then purpose. What was the purpose of the data that you are using or that AI has gathered for you? Because you want to make sure that you remove any bias. If the purpose created for the data that you're using or you seek to obtain is different from the purpose that material was created for, you have to take that into consideration. We want to make sure to remove bias, whether it's politics or preferences or anything like that. So keep that in mind. CRAAP. That's very important. Also, it's good to use historical data. You just want to make sure the data isn't too old. One thing that you'll notice with the government is that they're always asking for relevant experience, and they will usually use some historical data. But the context there is that there is a uniform process, right? The government usually doesn't want to, if you're providing relevant experience or any kind of information, they prefer that it's no older than usually 2 to 5 years. So historical data is very important. And we carry that over when we're building our prompt structures and we're gathering data. So when we're creating our prompts, we want to assign a role, right? So in this example, I could say that I am a government contracts expert and I want to create a course on pricing, right? But I need to give it some specific task to make sure I have a good prompt. So I would refine that as I am a government contracts expert. I need to create a pricing class for government buyers. Could you create some course topics as well as learning objectives? I would like to use this course for new contracting officers to help them understand pricing. Please exclude any data older than 3 years. So I've hit all of those things there with my prompt. And if you are concerned that you don't know what you don't know, what I also do with the prompt structure is I always ask, is there any information you need from me for better results? And the beauty of that is that it will go through and ask you additional questions, and it also helps you find out more information so that you can gain some clarity on what you're trying to achieve. I always share this AI competencies information. And the reason I do is because the government identified these competencies for AI. They've broken them out between general competencies and technical competencies. And if you're going to grow in this space, in business, because it's all about business, you should work to understand and identify these competencies. And you're going to build on your skill set where you're strong at. But you're also going to look at this to identify maybe some weaknesses or opportunities where you may want to team with someone or an organization that can meet these gaps for you. This is another reason why we have no bid assessments, and we take our time in identifying equitable, collaborative, winning relationships when it comes to teaming and subcontracting. The other opportunity that I hope you see here is that there are some competencies, if you look at them, don't some of these competencies look like some skills you may already have? Right? If we look at this, accountability, attention to detail, customer service, external awareness, right? Problem solving. If we look at technical competencies, problem solving, project management, emotional intelligence is so important. We have to learn how to manage our emotions, right? In terms of where we're having a good relationship, or we have to navigate some conflicts or misunderstanding, right? That builds upon the relationship. And if you're going to connect, right? Because it's one thing to communicate and meet someone, it's another thing to truly have a connection. John C. Maxwell has a book, Everyone Communicates, but Few Connect. And the three pillars that he mentions there, if you're really going to build trust and build a collaborative, cohesive relationship that you can build upon over time, you need three things. Trust, they want to know, can they trust you? Do you understand? And do you care? And we know that to prove that we understand, there are some competencies and capabilities we need to have in terms of the marketplace, in terms of the product or service that we're providing, as well as in terms of the organizational culture and different stakeholders that we might have to address. All right, so now this is an example, and because I'm in Atlanta, I'm going to share this with you, but any state, all states through the United States have a specific area in which bids are placed if you wanted to find a bid opportunity. I wanted to make sure that you understand the difference between federal and state and local government. Why are we discussing this when we're also speaking of entrepreneurship and commercial business? Because federal law often drives the state and local laws in which you are required to operate your business. So if you have an understanding of the framework of the federal process, it will help you understand the framework on a state and local government perspective. What do we see that is happening right now with the federal government? There was an executive order that was specifically for federal contractors regarding DEI. But what follows suit with that? Even the commercial companies that don't have federal contracts or large DEI programs, everyone's rushing to try to meet some of those requirements. But they're making company decisions based upon government rules, federal government rules that they think are going to have an impact on their organization. It's also good for you to understand the political aspects or some unknown or hidden priorities that your customer may potentially have. So when we look at the federal government side, there are laws set by Congress, there are acts, there are treaties and international agreements. Those are to take precedence over executive orders or state and local government laws. And what that means is if there is a conflict with an executive order or a state and local law, if it is in conflict with a law or act or international treaty, it has to follow suit to the federal law. That is what takes precedence. That is also why you see now where we have over 111 executive orders, you see that some states are doing what? They're following suit. They're trying to have implement some of the same or similar federal laws. So it's important to know what's going on. There's a process where you can speak to your representatives, even on the federal level, provide comments to help shape how that regulation, that final regulation that is executed and implemented, takes place. So it's good for you to be mindful of that, because as a leader, as a CEO, even if you're just a solopreneur, you need to be savvy on the rules. And if you have an opportunity to shape those in a way that's beneficial to how your business runs, then the more successful you're going to be. So for the state and local, for the federal side, it's stipulated by FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, which has 53 parts. Right now, there is an executive order to streamline the FAR, so there will be continued changes there. Local government, as I mentioned, they have local government rules. The federal government also has labor laws or labor rates that are set by law, such as anything related to service contract positions or non-exempt positions, construction related job tasks, and a federal contract minimum wage. So if you're ever concerned that there's some other law that is in place for you that you may not be aware of, then you can simply research that, right? You'll identify what you think that may be, and you're going to research it. Because what you need to watch out for in your business agreements, whether they're commercial or government, you always want to look for any contract term that says incorporated by reference. There may be a list in your teaming or subcontract agreement, or even with the direct agreement with the supplier, like Coca-Cola or someone else, where they give you a list of contract terms and conditions where they may not spell them out, but they're listing those. And they're basically saying, oh, by the way, these terms and conditions are included as well. And you always want to read your terms and conditions, because you want to understand how do they affect the price of what you're offering, and what is the level of risk that you're going to have. So a lot of times in contracts, people say, oh, I don't want to read the entire contract. It's just legal stuff. Well, contracts are risk sharing mechanisms. Most of the terms and conditions related to contracts are tied to price. Think about it. Even if you're doing work with a Coca-Cola or an Amazon, there are requirements for insurance, right? Does that cost you money? Yes. Does that affect your risk in terms of how much they're going to share should there be something that happens in error or some unknown condition? Yes. So contracts are also risk-sharing mechanisms, as well as the 70 to 80% that affect price, such as how much are you going to get paid? How often can you get paid? What do you have to do to submit a proper invoice to be paid on time? And how does that affect your cash flow? So it's important to understand all of those things. When it comes to contract approval on the federal side, there are contracting officers, which are the only authorized individuals with warrants or head of contracting agencies that can sign on a government contract. Each one of those individuals have an amount for the contract award that they're allowed to sign to. So if you did have a federal government contract, you'd want to make sure that that contracting officer that signed it not only had a warrant, but you would want to make sure that if your contract award was for $2 million, their warrant said $2 million. Because guess what? If they're not authorized to sign at a certain dollar amount, you can have an invalid contract. When it comes to the state and local government side, there are different levels of approval for contract awards, and you would need to understand what those are as well. So it's very important to understand the rules. And we can bridge this in from a commercial aspect as well as an entrepreneur, right? Whenever you conduct business with an organization, you want to make sure that the authorized representative, the person that is authorized to sign on behalf of the organization, is the signature that's actually on your contract, or you don't have a valid contract. It's not going to do you any good. So make sure to do that. If you were looking for opportunities with the federal government, you would look on sam.gov. If it's a grant, you could look on the grants.gov site. You could also look at GSA acquisition hallway. For state and local governments, you would need to go to that. For local government, you would need to go to that particular county and look. And then you would identify how the state buys as well. What does the government buy? It's important to know the categories because you need to understand what category you fit in. Even on the commercial or private industry side, if you don't understand which category you fit in, it's going to be hard for you to identify any keywords that you might want to use in your marketing, in your material to build from, or also to have the conversation and build the proper material with the federal government. It's hard to identify your ideal customer when you don't understand how they define their business. So there's information technology, transportation and logistics, all sorts of things. You just really, when you start building your ideal customer profile and or targeting a government agency and what they buy, you need to understand which bucket do you fit in and identify the related code for that. This is a 2021 fiscal year spend. This is, of course, now the government has spent much more than this, but sticking to those categories, look how much the government spends. And this is how you need to understand your work. If you were facilities and construction, what I tell everyone is think of the entire supply chain. So you can identify as many opportunities where you can engage and win work as well, whether it is a direct award or subcontract. Because when I'm looking at this, I don't know what you see, but if I look at professional services and I see that the government spent over $70 billion, even 1% of $70 billion is good. Yes or no? Right? Half of that. So understand where you might fit in and understand some secondary or related skill sets that you may have where you can identify as many opportunities for work as you can. So under professional services, for example, you see social services, marketing and public relations, management and advisory, and then just keep drilling down. If you're going to be successful in business, whether you have a government customer or a commercial customer, it's best to go deep before you go wide. So instead of trying to be everything to everyone, focus on what you're good at and what you're going to offer. This also helps you in terms of building relationships, because if you are engaged with the decision maker, someone of influence, and you're doing everything, they're going to be like, well, what are you good at? How is that going to affect your capability and capacity to perform if you're trying to do so many other things? What do you really know? So stay focused. And what I like to remind people is, don't worry about where your skill set is compared to some of the others. Everyone is in a different place because people have unique value positions, right? And they may have a different team that's put together. So you really have to focus on what are you good at? How can you prove that you're knowledgeable, experienced, and credible, and build from there? Okay, I see some questions. Do we have any questions in the chat? Okay, I see a question here. Federal government is in flux. What do you advise in light of firings, layoffs, retirements, closing, reorganizations? What my advice is to keep watching. What I always tell people is to follow the money. You've seen organizations that don't have federal contracts or a lot of contracts still trying to align their policies and procedures with the federal government. And why is that? Because they're looking to either get into the federal government or at least position themselves to be a good partner for someone that may have federal government work. My advice to everyone with any customer type is to stay ready. Part of you assessing what you do and analyzing the risk is you're saying, do I even want to be in this space? If you want to be in the federal government space, my advice to you is to stay procurement ready, meaning all of the things that you're required to do to be a federal contractor, current SAM registration, understanding your business categories, identifying your NAICS codes, having a capability statement, which is a business resume, having marketing material, presenting a capability briefing. Make sure that you maintain those things. So look at these numbers. If the federal government spends, look at all these numbers, over $3 trillion a year, and they have reduced a lot of the workforce. They've eliminated some agencies, right? They've also eliminated some of the contracting staff. What do you think is going to happen? What business can eliminate a lot of its employees and eliminate a lot of its departments and not have to continue to outsource? Who's going to do that work? Right? So stay ready because this work is definitely going to come back around. The question is how much of it and how much do you need to, how do you position yourself to work with it? Right? So, because what happens is, for one thing, you have to remember the way the federal government has a contract is not the same as the commercial side. The commercial contracts use UCC, Uniform Commercial Code, which are based upon state and local government laws, which is why I showed you that. When you hear someone say, I wanted to smell this myth really quickly. When you hear someone say, oh, we terminated 100 contracts and we saved 300 billion, not so sure. And I'm going to tell you why. The federal government has blanket purchase agreements. They have contract vehicles. And when a company is awarded one of these, that doesn't mean that the government has spent that money. That means that, let's say, if you have BPA 3 for 5 years to $3 million, then that money has been set aside for you to use when you decide to place your order. So just because you see an award doesn't mean they spent that money. That means that contract was set aside for that amount, but it depends on when the government wants to order from it as to when that money will be spent. So I said that to say, as these changes continue to evolve, these agencies begin to have a more realistic approach of the type of work that's needed. With these employees gone, with the contractors gone, you will definitely see a shift. But be very careful when you hear how much a contract is, right? What was the contract award amount from and what they're doing? Because some of these contracts, yes, the work has started, but not all of the contracts have there been any orders placed against that. So that may not be the actual value in terms of how it's going to be used. All right, did I see any?
Yes, we have Shar with a question. What can I offer as an insurance agent? I see financial services.
Okay. So a couple of things too, and then Anna, does the federal government outsource customer service? Yes, it does. I'll give you an example. Remember, I said that I started out that one of the things that I served as was a regional contract administrator for the 5 regions there in TRICARE. And what that contract, $4 billion, was really about was establishing a call center for the TRICARE beneficiaries to call in, schedule appointments, and et cetera. Customer service. Does the IRS have customer service? Yes, that may be changing, but yes. So there are different offices where there are a need for customer service agents, and you will see call center contracts. You can look at the pricing if you wanted to get an idea on pricing or services. Even if you don't have a GSA schedule, you can go to GSA library, use those keywords or those NAICS codes and get an idea of how much they're spending for it. Okay, next question. What can I offer as an insurance agent? The government also pays organizations to manage employee benefits. As an insurance agent, I'm not for sure what type of insurance you provide. It depends. Because whenever the government does spend money, they have to define the need. Okay, so I don't know. Think about this. The government, you saw, spends several $1 billion on transportation. All of these agencies where they have fleet management. So if you are in fleet management or transportation, somebody's got to clean the cars and service the cars and have insurance. Okay, that's what I mean about look at the supply chains and the needs related to those categories. Insurance, yes, there could be some need for life, health, and Medicare. Think of this with the government, though. It's not just what can you do, it's can you handle the level of effort that they need. Do they need it for all of the United States, which would be CONUS, continental United States? Do they need it for international, OCONUS, outside of the United States? Do you provide these services regionally? Can you provide these services nationally? So you have to look at all of that when you're saying, yes, I can do that work, which is another reason you might, I always advise people to find teaming partners. So can you do the work? What capacity can you handle? Do you have teaming partners to help you fill the gaps? When it comes to the state of Georgia, last year, $11 billion on goods and services. They're buying some of the same things, constructions, renovation of government properties, right? And when it comes to state government, state and local government, remember this, there are different pots of money. So there may be certain rules for, let's say, the judicial system in the courthouse, there's funding, and then funding for education. For example, I live in Cobb County. Cobb County has almost $2 million worth of funding. It's pretty huge. So if you ever have a question about what to do and what you should know, follow the money, whether it's government or commercial. Follow the money, because that organization is the one that's going to be driving the rules, as well as driving the need and the requirements that you may have. This chart is here for the state of Georgia, because I wanted you to see with the state of Georgia, they have state term schedules, which are pre-approved vendors at pre-approved prices that offer services to the state of Georgia. And you see this tier here, right? There are 3 tiers based upon pre-approved vendors that they must buy from before they even get to putting something out for bid. So doing your research, identifying teaming partners is very important, because you want to be able to access at every level. Even if you are in the commercial and private side, a lot of these large companies have tiers. Coca-Cola has different tiers of buying, right? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, everyone has tiers based upon your experience, your level of effort, and how well they know you to be able to solve the problems for their organization. This is a list of what the state of Georgia buys, also the counties. You see, again, what do you see? Health and medical, real estate, manufacturing, professional services, and financial services could be audits, it could be consulting, it could be reviewing taxes, it could be grant management, but you see some of the same things, which is why I say it's important to understand where do you fit in, looking at the supply chain within that group and the type of services or products they may need, and then aligning that to what you offer. Right. So if you're interested in local government work, you would need to go to that particular county. If you're in Georgia, look at the 10 major metropolitan counties that make up the Atlanta area, and go to each one of those and see, how do you register as a vendor and how do you find out about the bids? In Georgia, I can let you know, most counties, they're using OpenGov or BidNet. You can, and for the state of Georgia contracts, they're using Team Georgia Marketplace. So what is the pivot? If you are a federal contractor and you're like, what am I going to do now? Right? I don't know if maybe you experienced contract termination or the bid was canceled or something. Go back to your why, get back to the basis. What problem do you solve? How do you solve the problem? What is the benefit to working with you? Are there any efficiencies or cost savings that you create with your expertise and your processes? And then do a competitive analysis as well as a market assessment. How is the market solving this problem right now? Are there a lot of other companies providing the same service that I need to compete with? What are the market trends telling me? Are the number of available vendors going to change within the next few years because of AI? Are the number of available vendors going to change maybe because of tariffs? So you really need to understand what is happening in the marketplace. AI is another good way to do that. Okay. And to get started, focus on your why and find your niche, which is why I showed you those categories. You want to look at who spends the most on what you offer. And because cash flow is so important, to you being able to pay your bills on time and recruit and retain employees. Don't just get excited because you see a large project that you can bid on and you're capable of. Look at how you would get paid. Look at that bid requirement to see what can what costs align with the task that you can bill for and get paid, and when do you get paid? Because you want to map that to your cash flow and do a cash flow assessment. What the government looks for is not only are you capable, but can you stay in business without disrupting work? Do you have the skills and financial resources available to stay in business? If not, even if you're smart, they don't want to do business with you. This is true on the government and the commercial side. So the bid, no bid decision helps you assess that, because the other question is not just, is this profitable, but can I afford this work? So how many projects do you currently have in queue? How much staff are those projects using? Can you recruit and retain the people or the resources that you need? How does those financial needs your organization has just to stay in business, how is that affected by the cash flow that your new contract might bring? Right. And then, as you know, with federal and state and local, there are small business certifications. One thing that I will say about Georgia, if it is a Georgia certified business, because Georgia does have a business certification for Georgia organizations, those other than small businesses get a tax credit for working with small businesses. So if some certified Georgia business wants to work with you, use that as leverage to negotiate how much work share you'll get for the project. All right. This is what AI can help you do. I'm going to show you this quickly, but identify your NAICS code. So each one of those categories have related NAICS codes, where the Small Business Administration has said this type of work falls under this NAICS code. You will see a dollar amount or an employee number of employee amount. Any dollar amount at or below that NAICS code number is what means you're a small business. Any employee number at or below that number is what will quantify you as a small business. That's why sometimes in government, people may protest and say they're not really small. What they're saying is they make more than that particular number set aside for that code. If you have state and local government work, you would be using an NIGP code. When you go to these resources, they will help you identify that, or you can use the tools online to identify that. Capability statement, that is just your business resume, which should be revised specifically toward the mission and the objectives of the company that you are targeting. Okay. I don't know if there are any questions. Okay. All right, this is a pricing model. Just want to make sure you use that. I'm going to spend the last few minutes doing a live run. Make sure you understand how to put your prices together. What does it cost? You should price for everything. You should, when you're reading any kind of required bid, whether it's government or commercial, conduct a work breakdown structure known as a WBS, where you identify each task that you're required to complete. You dig into each task individually with all the steps and resources that you need, and you identify a cost related to that. Identify costs related to deliverables and reports, because even if it's easy and auto-generated, it's going to take you time to run a report. And you put together your total price. You do not want to underbid. So I like to show this government cost model because it gives a nice detailed breakdown of what you should consider when you're putting together a full price. The government wants to see what they call fully burdened rate, which means if it's a labor hour, it's the total price that they would pay, which would be the hourly rate plus the fringe plus the G&A plus the profit. And you really need to get in the habit of pricing all of your projects that way, whether they're government or not, to help you identify your true cost or total cost over the lifetime of the contract, and you don't underbid. All right. The government also has the state and local government as well as federal and unsolicited proposal process, which simply means If you see that there is a need that we have, but we have not put it out for a bid, we don't have it on contract, you have an opportunity to submit an unsolicited proposal and price it. If we say, you know what, you're right, we need this, we weren't planning on bidding it, you could possibly win an award. So another reason market research and information gathering and relationship building is important. These are the business use cases for AI that I've mentioned: market research, proposal support, helping you have a proposal outline and compliance matrix, completing checklist, helping you with performance summaries, the pricing strategy or learning how to price, as well as you may be more familiar with some of the marketing materials, such as creating marketing materials, whether it's a capability statement, a marketing data sheet, using some of the historical procurement data to research customer engagement and identify key industry points so that maybe you can create a white paper or some other helpful material that your customer could use. These are the key takeaways. Any questions before we do some live examples? Okay. Let's see. Am I missing some? Okay, I see a question. Oh, can you repeat the website? So sam.gov, I'm going to discuss the federal websites first. You can use sam.gov. Each government agency also lists their forecast opportunities. So any government agency, usually if you go to doing business with that agency or the small business office, you'll see some forecasted opportunities. Sometimes you will also see a list of primes or potential subcontracting there. So sam.gov, agency sites with forecast opportunities, the GSA, contract acquisition highway. If it is state, you want to research you're doing business with that particular state. Georgia has a Team Georgia Marketplace. And then each county in Georgia also has their own website where you would register and look for bids. You are more than likely to find most of them on OpenGov or BidNet, and you would create a profile with your related codes. I see another question. If I'm in transportation, I'm interested in this, where do I start that stay safe or not biting off more than I can handle? Solopreneur. I always advise, identify, as I said, your category, identify when you're looking at the supply chain or just doing some basic research on the kind of bids that come out. That will help you understand how to identify the specific work that you would be able to do related to transportation. You can also see under the example I provided for transportation, all the different subcategories related to that. For another easy task would be if you went to GSA eLibrary and entered transportation, it's going to show you a list of transportation subcategories and NAICS codes. Even if you don't have a GSA schedule, even if you're not bidding on a federal project, GSA is free to you, and it gives a lot of good marketing information because GSA is the federal acquisition arm for all of federal government. So you could start there, identify what you can actually do. When you see an opportunity where you can do the work on the OpenGov and BidNet, you can state if you're, even Sam, if you're an interested vendor, look at that interested vendor list or supplier list. You could reach out to them and send your capability statement and say, I'm interested in this project. I provide these services. Can we discuss a way to partner or subcontract? Done that several times. Everyone does that. Also, you can go to small business. There's a small business subnet site which lists all small businesses. You can also review those by location and state and see what kind of services or products people have, and maybe you will find somewhere there, but you have to start looking. And the best way to do it is identify your codes, service or product codes, look at the interested vendors list, look at the requirements in the bid, and then put together a well-documented list of the work you can do with your strengths and weaks and opportunities so that you know how to identify teaming partners and start building those relationships. Engage with the buyers, engage with potential teaming partners. All right, these are the resources that I mentioned for copywriting framework. I'm going to show you that on the live AI run when we just put together different styles like ADA or business information. If you wanted to create an article or something for your web page or data sheet, identify what framework you want to use to do that. All right, any other comments or questions? Let's see. Awesome. I now have my cage code UEI and great. Congratulations, service disabled, veteran-owned small business. Excellent. So let me tell you something there about certifications. When it comes to SAM registration for the federal government, do not let it expire. That's the best thing. There's a federal rule that says when you submit a bid and at the time of award, your registration must be current. It's not just good enough to have one. If your registration is not current, the government can use it as a decision not to make the award to you. So don't let your SAM registration expire. Also, don't feel like you have to put all of your codes in your registration at once, whether it's the state, local, federal, or even with the supplier. You can update those. Maybe you want to, when you identify a bid, you notice a different NAICS code that you haven't registered. Go back in and add it. Or after a while, you'll notice that the opportunities that you normally find may not fit some of the NAICS codes that you use. Remove some of these. The market research and assessments that you need to do are ongoing. They never stop. So when you identify a bid, you're looking at the requirements. You're looking to assess how much of the work and level of effort you're able to do. You're assessing, like, of course, when is the last day for questions? You want to make sure to get your questions in without tipping off the competitor. You're looking at the NAICS code. You're paying attention to how are they identifying the kind of work that this is, because you want to add that to your list and create a customer profile. So you know what? This is how my ideal customer speaks. This is how they look for work, and I'm going to set up to make sure that I can do the same thing. All right. Thank you. Thank you. So any other questions and comments before I go to ChatGPT? Here's another secret. Even if you don't want to deal with the federal government, it is a wonderful resource because what did I say? Follow the money. Because federal government laws require good fiduciary use of taxpayer money. There's a lot of market research and data that has to be done to justify what they buy. And what better way to find out what you don't know and save time than using the resources that are already there available to you? So even if you're not selling to the federal government, I advise my customers, they're simply in the commercial, my clients in the commercial sector, you can still use the data. There's nothing wrong with using the data. It's not cheating and it's very beneficial and helpful to you. Okay, my freebie is relevant experience template. And the reason is whenever you conduct work, whether it's government or commercial, they want to know, as I stated, what experience do you have? How well of a job did you do? And prove it. And the way that you do that is with relevant experience. So in addition to identifying your categories, you should also outline and summarize your relevant projects that will prove and verify to any potential decision maker that you should do the work. So my freebie to you is a draft template of helping you put that together. If you're a solopreneur, don't be concerned if it's just you. Write down projects related to your experience. Even if it was when you were an employee, it is still experience that may be used. Just check on the date, right? We want to make sure we're jotting down the dates as well. If you are an organization and you're small or you're looking to get into a new market space or market share, you want to identify company organization experience as well as key personnel experience. The federal government allows you to use federal government project experience, state and local government project experience. experience with the private sector, and experience from key personnel. These are things that you should always keep a database of your project. So at any given time, if you need to use it for a proposal response or in discussions with a potential teaming partner, you have that readily available. When it comes to responding to proposals, it does not matter how well they know you, they can only evaluate your proposal off of what you write. You have to get in the habit of writing specifically and with clarity what you do and your processes, and as well as getting in the habit of providing that supporting documentation that justifies the accuracy of what you do. That's just good business practice, entrepreneurs, and the government. Any other questions or comments? All right, so I'm going to spend these last few months looking at chat. All right, so I have set up some things for small business. So one of the things that I've done for the sake of time is I created a prompt just to show you how you could use AI to identify your ideal customer. So think of the framework that I mentioned earlier. I am a government contractor specializing in IT professional services. Act as a business expert and help me create my ideal customer persona to build a repeatable customer acquisition model. Here's some key things. One, I describe my role. Two, I describe my type of work, information technology professional services. And you notice I didn't say act as a government expert. I said act as a business expert. Why did I do that? Any ideas? One ideal is this: the government wants to maximize the efficiency of the innovation and subject matter expertise in the country from all businesses, whether they're engaged in government business or not. So the government's role in the why they do the market research, why they may speak with industry experts, is they want to make sure they're getting the best in the commercial marketplace, whether that company is working directly for the federal government or not. So they want business subject matter experts. That is why I said act as a business expert, right? I said repeatable customer acquisition model. Why is this important as an entrepreneur? You have to know how much time and money it's going to take you to get a new customer. That's what acquisition is about. If you are looking to scale and grow your business and you're looking at an exit strategy, any potential buyer for your business, besides them wanting to know how profitable you are, they're going to want to know how much does it cost you to obtain and keep a customer. So AI, look at this easy way for us to do that. So these steps here that you see, narrow your focus. I spoke to that, didn't I? Is asking you these questions. Identify key traits of your best customers. Understand their pain points. Define the decision makers. And I always add, and influencers. You want to know who is influencing the decision. They may not have a specific shiny job title that we think. So you want to, who might be influencing the decision? Right? What is a typical characteristic of a federal IT buyer? Giving you some potential job titles that you may look for in your research that you might want to reach out to and set up a meeting or have a phone call. So this is how does this help you build a repeatable acquisition model? This is telling you the kind of effort you should be making. Outreach, what is that about? Marketing. And we can use AI for marketing as well. Capture strategy, that simply means when you conduct your market research, you are identifying and creating a sales pipeline of potential work that fit your core offerings that you're going to go after. Proposal writing, AI helps with proposal writing in sense of that initial draft and capability statements and a bid, no bid decision. So that looks helpful, right? Agree? Can I see an emoji or a thumbs up? And then look at the next question. Want me to help you build a pipeline template? Of course I do. So this is what I mean about generative pre-trained transformer and, you know, setting the system up to training the system for you because it will continue to build upon that. So I saved this just for you guys. Yes, please build a pipeline and outreach sequence based on this persona and watch what happens.
All right,
Right.
we got Tanya raising her hand. You want to take Tanya's question, Shene?
Sure, let's see, is it in the
Yeah,
freebie is the
she's gonna
relevant
come.
experience? Okay, I don't see the question. Tanya, was it about a certified travel consultant?
Go ahead and unmute your mic, Tanya.
Okay, yes, she said. So as you can see, the government does spend money on travel because they need, think about, as I said, going to the embassies, going out of the country, people in the military needing to go different places and visit the different bases. There is the joint travel regulations for travel. There are per diems for the government where they say, look, we're the government, we're your best customer, give us the best rates. So they have pre-established rates at hotels and airlines and et cetera for government staff. So there are different ways you would look at travel. When you say travel consultant, I would suggest based upon the regs and how they spend for travel that you identify someone to partner with or a company, because it's not always something that would just be a one-off. Sometimes what happens is maybe they are, because the government will also pay for event management and conference services. I would say when we look at the supply chain of that, look at the companies that provide event management and conferences and reach out to them and say, you also help with travel because maybe they could subcontract for you. So for example, I have event management clients that I work with. They usually subcontract for travel, audio, visual, products. And that's why I said identify your category and dive deep into what kind of services and things that are needed so that you can get that identify partners and other work. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Did I miss any? Okay, and this is our, you're welcome. So you see the pipeline strategies for federal government. It's telling you the stage, your key actions, and what this is. If you were to go to agencies doing business with or small business offices, you will see, especially with the Department of Defense, they have their small business office and doing business with, they say there's a page that they normally all have is how to engage with the federal government. And guess what? This information here about these stages are some of the exact same things you're going to see on that list. It's really simple. Do your homework, target your customers, prepare your market material so that you can engage and build relationships, have a capability briefing, have a strategy for identifying and maintaining a robust pipeline of projects that you're going to bid on, right? Understand the bid, no bid decision. And there's a chart for that as well. We're running out of time though, as well as post engagement and referrals. Never ask for about other work. And then it gave us our email sequence. And this subject says improving IT mission, improving small business innovation. Your subject should be related to a specific project, not just that you're a small business. They get thousands and thousands of emails like that a day. Focus on the mission outcome of the organization you want to serve and build from there. It also has LinkedIn messages and capability statements. And then one more thing. All right, let me go back to my files here. Okay. You may need a capability briefing. And I'm using chat task, a chat project folder. And there's a template for that. So guess what? This is another reason I said, you don't have to figure it all out. Use what the government's already created for you. You can use that in the commercial sector as well. They're asking the same thing, except for some of the key differences. So a capability briefing is a PowerPoint presentation And is a 5-slide capability statement that Health and Human Services have that a lot of people adapted for other customers and agencies. And it breaks down the mission of your organization, the vision, your core competencies, what sets you apart, if you have any certifications, your NAICS codes, and I'm going to zoom in on this in case some of you see something similar to what you have. These are the key NAICS codes that I have.
Screen? Are you sharing your screen, Shene?
Yes, I'm sorry, hold on. Thank you so much. I thought I was sharing my screen. All right, everybody see the screen now? So I ask it to create a capability briefing off of the draft. I upload it, which shows my mission, vision, core competencies, what makes me different. I also list my NAICS codes. I'm sharing this so you can see these as well. Okay, some of you have some of the same ones. But we're constantly building from this past performance. Speaking of some of my past performance, if you have past performance related to what they need, forecasted opportunities, just some examples there. So, all right. I hope this was helpful. We have a government business course that we'll have, and if you use the link for the relevant experience, very relevant experience template, I will send you information on that course where we'll have more time to specifically go into some of these things in detail. But thank you so much for your time and your questions. I hope you found this helpful.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shene. Very informative session. Thank you everyone for being here, and see you on the next one. Bye.